Crowdfunding is starting to play a role around the fringes of mobile health. We've seen a few notable companies. Scanadu, for example, has gone out and it crowdfunded their device. There are a few others in the space, both the wearable space and sort of more generally the mobile health space. I think it's, whether or not it's going to play a large part in it, I think there's a subsegment of companies for which it might. So maybe obviously the more consumer-facing devices, not the clinical devices. I don't think they have any part in crowdfunding, but the consumer-facing devices, perhaps. And I think in general it'd be only the consumer-facing devices which are close to market, because effectively what you're doing is you're selling the consumer the product on layaway. So you still have to deliver the device.
If early on the risk is consumer adoption and consumer interest and willingness to pay and price point, then I think crowdfunding can be, a great way to test those concerns and address some of those as early as possible. Maybe you raise some money in the process that's beneficial, but I think it also accelerates the time, or sort of shortens the timeline that the company has to launch a product, because suddenly there's a lot of pressure and a clock ticking on customers that prepaid for products in Kickstarter, Indiegogo, et cetera.
My concern with crowdfunding in general is that there are a lot of investors coming in from outside of healthcare investing in mobile health companies. And I think there's maybe good and poor aspects to having a lack of expertise in an area. Well, now you have consumers investing effectively in mobile health, and now they're no longer necessarily experts in healthcare, and they're also not investors. And I think there is bound to be some disappointment down the line, and I'm just curious how that will shake out. But for right now, it seems to be a viable alternative for some companies to get funding. I just don't know how much that'll continue in the future.
I think where it can be more helpful is if it attracts super angels and can attract a variety of super angel groups that want to put more considerable dollars into an investment. And there are some new venues, I think, that are or marketplaces for crowdfunding that have potential to me, that draw from a subsector or a select group of qualified investors that have relevant knowledge to the field, and they can invest in reasonable chunks. So I think as long as it's not a time burden or you're showing your cards too soon and creating a bunch of competition, crowdfunding can be right for some companies.